Hey everyone, it's Stewart. This week I wanted to make a much shorter, less flashy video that works kind of more like a vlog, just to answer some questions regarding what audio interface should I buy. Because there's always buzzing like this in the comments, and there's always people asking me, and there's always people who have their own commentary on what they like, and there's what I like, and it's a big jumble. So what I wanted to do today was go through a couple different audio interfaces, explain why they're good, and give you guys some suggestions. Keep in mind that all of these I already have great reviews, I recommend them, so I'm kind of cutting out looking through the interfaces that may not be as good. So let's just get started by looking at the audio interfaces that have like 2 inputs. So your first type audio interface is a 2-input audio interface. Now this is for recording simultaneous tracks like a vocal and a piano, or a vocal and a guitar, something like that. So I have 2 suggestions for this. First, I have the TASCAM 200. Then I also have the PreSonus audio box. Now I'm a huge fan of TASCAM, and keep in mind throughout this video I am endorsing them, but I'm not like, you know, being paid to do this. I don't have like a bias brought on by anything else aside from my personal use of their products, which I find to be very good. So anyway, their interface, their 200, is really great for just simultaneously recording. On PreSonus, I've heard a lot of great things about them. They have good reviews, and their audio box seems to be pretty good. One thing I'd like to bring up regarding audio interfaces in general is that usually they're going to have like a 2x4 or 6x8. What that normally means is that the first number is the number of inputs and the other number is the number of outputs. So don't get confused, because sometimes it'll say like 4x4, but those other 2 inputs are not XLR inputs and they're not 1/4 inputs. They're actually like MIDI inputs. So make sure you look at pictures of it and make sure it has the correct plugs that you need, because sometimes that can be kind of confusing. So let's move on to 4-input mixers. Now there's a couple options you have for 4-input. Now this is if you're recording maybe a couple different people. You're recording a vocalist, a guitarist, and you're also recording your bassist and your pianist. Something like that. It's more versatility, you have more functions. For this, I suggest the upgrade from the TASCAM 200, the TASCAM 600. I've heard great things about it. I have a friend who uses it, and I've just heard it's a very good interface, has great reviews. It's just the next step up from the 200, and that should work pretty well for you. In addition to that, I wanted to talk about a new one that I heard is coming out. Another one I want to talk about is this new thing called the Akai Professional EIE interface. Now this is a 4-input interface. It's on pre-order. You can't even pick it up yet, but you know, the websites like Guitar Center, Musical Around, Sweetwater, who have already gotten a chance to take a look at it and review it, have some great reviews of it, and I've looked at a couple videos, and I'm going to suggest this one for someone who doesn't want to buy a TASCAM, who's maybe looking at some other stuff, maybe a little more functionality. This one looks really interesting, because basically what it is it's a 4-input mixer, but it's got more of a rugged design, more of like a desktop box, which just may work better in a home recording studio. And in addition to that, it looks like it has a couple more functions in terms of organizing your preamps and figuring out what you want to do with that. So that's something to check out. Keep in mind all these links will be in the bottom, so check those out. Those are 4-input mixers. Let's talk about 6-input. For 6-input, you're getting down to less and less options, because you're actively moving away from the consumerist side of it and going more into the pro-consumer side of it. So for this one, I just have one suggestion, and that's the TASCAM 800. This thing is phenomenal. It's what I use for all my tracks. It's what you've seen in my videos, and I highly recommend it. I think it's a wonderful interface. You know, I'm sure there's other 6-input ones out there, but as I said, your selection is going down as the number of inputs goes up. So I would highly suggest that. So let's talk about anything beyond 6 inputs. If you want beyond 6 inputs, you're probably recording a big band, maybe like a jazz band or a concert band, or do you just have a really big band? Or I don't know, maybe a choir and you have lots of microphones. Whatever the reason, maybe it's a choir, or I just said choir. Okay, maybe about a church, something like that, where you could use like 16 or 10 or 12. For this, I would suggest a TASCAM 2000, or any TASCAM in between the 800 and the 2000. The 2000 retails for anywhere between $400 and $500. It's obviously much more expensive, but it's also going to have 16 individual inputs, and that's pretty cool. So those are my suggestions. You got, for the 2-input, you have the TASCAM 200 and the PreSonus audio box. For the 4-input, you got the TASCAM 600 and the Akai Professional EIE, which I predict is going to be really freaking sweet. For the 6 input, I highly suggest a TASCAM 800, and I wouldn't even recommend anything else. And then finally, for anything above that, like a 16 input, you have the TASCAM 2000. So let's talk about just a couple reminders I want to have for you guys when you're buying your audio interfaces. One reminder that I would have for you is make sure it has phantom power, because some microphones might require phantom power, and if you don't have phantom power, you're going to have to run that through a different preamp, and that's just going to suck. So don't save yourself a hassle. Make sure it has phantom. Most of them do, but some of the older ones might not, so just save yourself the hassle, make sure it does. In addition to that, make sure that it has preamps built into it. Now this is kind of an industry standard at this point, but I have seen a couple older interfaces like pre-2008 or 9 that don't have preamps in them. Now if they don't have preamps, if you don't know what a preamp is, essentially what it's doing is it's creating the signal of your microphone, it's boosting it, it's controlling it, and it's allowing it to be outputted to your computer or your interface or whatever. Now most of these ones, including every single one that I suggested today, have built-in preamps, and that's really good. If they don't have a built-in preamp, you have to have a separate preamp, and that just sucks. So just make sure they have them. They should have them, and maybe there's even some details. Obviously, I'm not terribly versed in preamps. I'm sure some of you audiophiles in the comments can tell me the difference between one preamp built in to another preamp built in. I'm assuming that some of the ones use crappy parts and other ones use great parts. I don't really care. Either way, a preamp's a preamp. Make sure that that you have preamps in your audio interface. And I'm fully aware of the fact that I just said a preamp is a preamp. It's probably going to get a bunch of people to yell at me, so you know what I mean. Make sure there's a preamp. That's all I'm saying. So that's all I really have for you guys today. I hope this helps. I really wanted to name off, half a dozen good audio interfaces that I suggest for different inputs, for different styles, for different bands, for different people that need them. Because I've had a lot of talk about this in the comments. I get messages about it every week, and I hope that this clears it up, and I hope that this aids you in your shopping and aids you in your knowledge, so that way when you're going out to buy an audio interface, you're going out to buy your second audio interface, or you're upgrading, or you're figuring out what you need, hopefully you're a little more educated as a result of this. As always, please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. If you have other audio interfaces you'd love to talk about, by all means do so. And thanks for watching, and I hope this shorter blog this week was helpful. Have a good one.